What is up, guys? It's finally here. Today I'm bringing you guys the Cyber Angel deck profile.
Don't lose your way, your mind free how to be.
Cyber Angels are actually a deck that were played right out of the gate at the last YCS, both at Remy and in Toronto. So it's very interesting to see. I feel like the deck is going up in price. People are going crazy. Heralds are like $14 a piece for like gold rares. But overall, I feel like the deck is it's really flexible, it's really creative, and I actually am so glad to finally bring you guys the Cyber Angel list after the hectic delay. So first off, we have 3 copies of Cyber Angel Benton. Benton is probably one of the most important cards in the deck. Whenever she is she can be ritual summoned, and she has an effect where if she runs over a monster, she inflicts piercing damage, sort of like Elemental Hero Flame Wingman, but it does defense instead of... You're never really going to use that deck effect very often. Most time, you're going to tribute her off. So whenever she is tributed, she adds 1 light fairy monster from your deck to your hand. The important thing to remember is, like all these Cyber Angels, she is not once per turn, which is one of the things that gives this deck power plays, is being able to continually use resource. This card is the key to any Cyber Angel deck. Never, ever, ever play less than 3. Next up, we have 2 copies of Cyber Angel Idaten. I know a lot of people aren't playing Idaten, but I love the card because it allows you to cycle through. If you open this Benton, it instantly can get you a 3800 defense Herald online, which is really good. She basically just allows you to cycle to get... It's just another way to get that Herald from your deck to your hand. And she's probably one of my favorites just because this year she searches any ritual spell and she can re-add ritual spells from your graveyard. So overall, I think 2 is fine. Like, I was playing 3, but it got kind of cloggy. Then we have 2 copies of Cyber Angel Daikini. Similar to Idaten, I don't think the rare exception of the 50 card Heraldic variant I've been testing, you only really need 2. So Daikini's main effect is that when she's ritual summoned, your opponent must choose a monster they control and send it to the graveyard. The important thing to note about that is cards like Felgrand, cards like number 81 Dora will still be sent to the graveyard because you're making your opponent choose. It's the way it's worded. And the other thing is she turns all your ritual monsters into piercing damage, which, especially if you summoned her via attributing an Idaten, that's 3,700, and your Sephiroths will be doing piercing as well. Then every end phase, much like, Sephiroth, she re-adds a Machine Angel Ritual or a Cyber Angel monster from your graveyard. This is probably one of the most important cards in the deck. I wouldn't play more than 2, because 3 can get a little cloggy, but 2, I think 2 is the good ratio. Now for the Saphira. Speaking of Saphira and Herald, we have the 2 Saphiras and 2 Herald. You might ask, Aura, why aren't you just playing 3/3? The main reason is that just space issues, and I wanted to play the full complement of Cyber Angels with the Saphira and with Herald as support. Herald is obviously the better 2. I know a lot of people are actually cutting Saphira from the deck. I haven't really seen a valid reason why, other than she can be only triggers during end phase. But I feel like in any Herald deck, you're playing Saphira because she allows you to recycle your negates with Herald, and she's searchable via pre-prep and Ritual Sanctuary, which is neat. Then for the obvious, some of the obvious stuff, we have the 3 Manjus. It's a ritual deck. You play 3 Manjus. I don't really think to say too much about that. Then we have the Star Seraphs. We have 3 Scepter and 3 Sovereignty. Initially I wasn't playing these, but I felt like these really expand your options in the extra deck. Being able to draw cards, not only do they, being able to draw so many cards off the combo, but what makes these cards so good in this deck is that Benton can, if you open one of the combo pieces and you can have a Benton in hand, you can tribute it off for a ritual summon and then search out the other combo piece you need. It fixes one of the biggest problems these 2 cards had, which was consistently getting both cards in your hand. I will say that I'm planning on side decking Denko Sekkas, so these are probably going to come out when I do side deck. Next up, we have 2 copies of Honest. Pardon the pun, but I'm honestly thinking about maybe cutting it down to 1 because it is searchable. You don't always need it, but I kind of like having 2 in here, but it's really up to you. I feel like you kind of have to decide whether you want to play 2 or 1. Then, of course, the last monster deck, it wouldn't be a Cyber Angel deck without Arc Lord Christia. Obviously, guys, longtime guys know I don't really have a big fan of this card, but it's one of those cards you don't mind when you're on the receiving end of it, unless if you're you have the guy controlling the card. So Christia is really good in this deck. It's very similar to Moon Glacia, where like it's a power play you drop this and that's very, very easy to manipulate in this deck to manipulate the graveyard to where you have 4, and you can search it off of Ida 10, which is Ben 10, which is absolutely incredible. Then we have, for the spells, we have 2 copies of MST. I'm actually considering switching these for Cosmic Cyclone, because Cosmic Cyclone is really good in the mirror match. It's really good against, it's really good in the mirror match because it banishes the ritual spells, so your opponent can't get their effects. They can't recycle with Dawn, they can't protect with Herald. It's really good against Blue Eyes because you can chain it to their Gospel, so it turns off the protection effect in Grave. Metal Foes is really good against Pendulums, and honestly, I love MST, but I might play Cosmic Cyclones in here instead. It's in theory, but I haven't really tested it yet. Next up, we have the 2 copies of Ritual Sanctuary, the 2 Terraforming. Yeah, it's Aura. Why didn't you just play 3 Ritual Sanctuary? Aura is dumb. I should have picked up the 3rd copy because I wasn't playing 3. But this card is absolutely crucial to the deck. Like can be a lot of hands where just because you're playing so many ritual spells where you brick. And Ritual Sanctuary is the pantheism, if you will, of this deck. Like, I don't want to compare the 2 cards because they're obviously different, but it's the same thing. You're unbricking your hand, and that's what this card does. It also allows you to reuse your spell cards, so the extra copies of Terraforming aren't dead because you can just pitch them for Ritual Sanctuary. Next up, we have 2 copies of, obviously, 2 copies of Dawn Herald, 2 copies of Hymn of Light for our Saphira and our Herald. Dawn is really good. The only thing I sometimes don't like about Dawn is it requires specific levels, but with Benton, that's not as much of a problem as it once was. And basically, it allows you to tribute off a monster, the Benton, and then add the Benton right back so you can continue your combos and your plays. Hymn of Light is almost exactly like the Cyber Angel spell, except it only protects ritual monsters, which is key, because which I'll get to that in a moment. Next up, we have 3 copies of Machine Angel Ritual. If I was going to play the 3rd Ritual Sanctuary, this might be the card I cut down to 2. I love the card because it protects light monsters, which is key, because if you have Christia out and your opponent tries Regeki, you can just banish Machine Angel Ritual to protect it. There's not too much to say, but the card is absolutely amazing. But I'm still kind of debating whether it's worth playing as a 3 of. Like, I still need some ratio testing. Then for the last 4 spells, we have the 3 Preparation Rites and the 1 Preparation Rites. Preparation Rites is pre-prep is an absolutely amazing card. It's a +1 on activation, and it searches you on most of the key ritual pieces you need. Preparation Rites is still, every time I draw it in this deck, it's absolutely amazing because it'll dig you. It not only does it search Benten, it'll recycle any spell card you need to continue your combo. So basically, it searches your tribute fodder for the ritual spell card monster, and it re-adds the ritual spell to summon it. So it's that 1 for a reason, guys. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the extra deck. So the first monsters, this one's a new one from the same set, which is number 24, Dregalus the Vampiric Dragons. This is a very interesting card. Basically, it's a Book of Moon for extra deck monsters, but whenever it's flip base up, it sends a monster to the graveyard. The important thing to remember is that it can Book a Moon itself to flip itself face down, and whenever it leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, you can simply special summon it in face down defense position. The card is I love the card in this deck because you can, say you have multiple copies of Saphira out, and Saphira is only once per turn, unlike Daikini. So I'll overlay this with one of my extra Saphiras and just put this out with Herald, and it just limits your opponent's plays to out your field. Then for some of the Seraph targets, we have, of course, the 1 Ouroboros. Ouroboros is really, obviously, for good reasons here. This in Saphira is really nutty because first turn you can hand loop your opponent for 2. And I like the card because it's spot removal for annoying stuff, and it has 3 pretty good effects. The other 1 Vylon Sigma. I don't know, Vylon Sigma. I don't think Sigma is I think 104 Masquerade is the better card, but this is what I have for now. Vylon is if you don't know what this card does, basically it detaches and exceed. It has 3 level 4s, just like all the other Seraph targets, and it can detach and exceed material to target 1 card monster your opponent controls you equip it to this card, so it's very similar to Destiny Hero Plasma, and then it becomes a catastrophe for whatever the attribute of that monster you equipped. So number 104 Masquerade is definitely the better card, but like this card is not awful on its own. Then of course it wouldn't be a Seraphilus without the one Deltaros, and we are also going to be playing the one Diamond alongside with it. Deltaros, the ability to pop 2 cards off of and draw 1 off of the Seraph combo with this is really good. An important thing to note is this also prevents your opponent from disrupting your cards on summon. People forget it has that effect. And then Diamond's getting even better with Burning Abyss still being Dante still being at 3. Diamond just gets that much better because it doesn't allow your opponent to send with Beatrice or mill with Dante while it's online, and it turns off all their grave effects. It does conflict a little bit with, it doesn't allow you to resolve Saphira and Daikini's grave effects because the card will be banished, but in that situation, you're probably just hand looping your opponent with Saphira anyways, so it's like, if you have Diamond online, you probably should have won at that point anyways. And an important thing to note, Diamond is a light type monster, so you can protect it with Machine Angel Ritual. Then we have the 1 copy of Star Liege Paladynamo. I'm surprised more lists don't play this card, but it is, since we are playing the Seraphs, it's really good. If you don't know what this card does, it's very similar to Castel or 101. You detach 2 X materials from this card and target one face-up monster your opponent controls. Its attack becomes 0, and if it does, its effects are negated. And then when it also, not only that, when it's destroyed by an opponent's card by battle card effect, you get to draw a card. So it's sort of like a rank 4 Utopia Lightning for light decks, and on top of that, it negates the effects, so it deals with stuff like Bilza and stuff, big monsters that can't be destroyed by card effects. We have the one Utopia Lightning. I'm a little iffy. I'm still kind of want to see where the format goes with these cards, but with Cosmos being gone, but I feel like we're gonna have more. With the advent of Blue Eyes, we're going to have more above 3k decks running around, and Cosmos are going to go Dark Planet Turbo, I think, so these 2 cards are kind of, I feel like they're very necessary going forward. They have the 1 Dweller, Burning Abyss around, Starping Grave Effects is pretty important right now. The 1 Castel, this is a staple in pretty much any extra deck, and I know Castel is love, Castel is life. The one Gauntlet Launcher, I'm a little iffy on this card. I think there's a lot of other cards I could play in the extra deck, but I'm still a little iffy on Gauntlet Launcher, honestly. It was either this or Photon Strike Bouncer, but I feel like Gauntlet Launcher was just the better card, but it's like, you don't go in the extra deck too much, so really it's up to you. Then we have the 1 Beatrice. I think the card is actually pretty good in this deck, because you can do a lot of the same old combos you used to do with Preparation of Rites, and you can do that with pre-prep as well, that you can Foolish a monster to the graveyard and then add it right back with Preparation or pre-prep. And the combo isn't, but I feel like Beatrice just is a good combo card, and one reason I really like it is that it can trigger Saphira on your opponent's turn, and that's one of the really good things about Saphira, is that she can do that. Then we have the 1 M7. M7 is probably one of the most made cards in this extra deck, because you're constantly, the way this deck runs, you're going to be going into this at least once or twice in a game, more often than not, and it allows you to recycle all your Idatons just to be used again and continue your combos. Then we have the 1 Utopia Beyond. Card is absolutely amazing. Being able to put your opponent's monsters down to 0, and then swinging with a big with a 3700 Dakini or 3500 Saphira seems pretty good. Then we have the last one with the 1 Gaia Dragon, the Thunder Charger. This card is actually really, I'm surprised this card retains its value after all this time, but I like the card a lot. It allows me to do piercing damage to my opponents trying to be stally and get cute. So anyway, guys, as always, I'd like to come to the end of the deck. About comes to the end of the deck profile today. So I really appreciate it when you guys watch my videos. You can stay tuned later this week. I'll be uploading another episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh podcast. It'll be up in the next few days. So anyway, guys, as always, I thank you guys for watching. This is Orstorm signing out.